Got it.
On my list of things to do, so I thought I'd get that underway. And it's almost 2 o'clock. We've got 28 people in the waiting room. So shall we let them in?
Why not?
Why not?
Make this screen bigger.
Welcome, folks. We'll just, oh, it's 2 o'clock. Actually, Tim, can I give you a little job? Can you see the people in the waiting room as co-host?
Yes.
If you could keep an eye on that and admit people as they arrive. And I've just admitted a few, but maybe it's good to have 2 eyes on there once I start speaking in any case, if there are people a little late.
Got it.
Thank you. We've got a few people still arriving. All right, there's no one in the waiting room now, so it's after 2, so I think we'll kick things off. So welcome, folks, to the Know Your Worth pod. My name is Matt Young, and I'll be facilitating today's session along with Tim James and Celia Roberts. Just to get things underway, though, we'll do a little acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Meditation Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, given that there's probably people from all corners of the country here, and as well as their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So what I'd like to do to kick things off is to give you a little bit of a sense of how things will be proceeding this afternoon. And I'll give you a quick intro, a bit of a bio for Tim and Celia and myself, and then we'll get things underway. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear briefly from Tim to start. He'll be talking about the 3 C's, or his 3 C's. More on that shortly. Then I'll be talking briefly about, I've got 3 stories actually, 3 brief stories that I'd like to share with you on when I started out teaching meditation and the difficulties I had knowing my worth or how much to charge. And then we'll hear briefly from Celia about long-term strategies for earning a living making meditation. Then what we're going to do is break into little breakout rooms, and you can have little discussions amongst yourselves on the Meditation Australia pricing model. There's some suggested prices on the website, and we'll share that link with you so you can kind of just get a sense of what we've recommended or what Meditation Australia has recommended, and yeah, have a discussion about how those things to apply to you, or how those things do apply to you, and then we'll come back into the main group and have a bit of a Q&A discussion period to close things out. So that's our plan. First up though, I'll introduce you to Tim. If Tim, you can give us a little wave. So Tim James has managed a charitable organisation in Adelaide for several years and now works as a meditation teacher in the corporate space, teaching also in community groups, running retreats, and with the Australian Centre for Meditation and Mindfulness. Tim's business, Meditation Life, is based in Adelaide and supports people to bring meditation into their everyday life, to connect deeply and recognise the wisdom that lies within. Tim has 20 years experience writing engaging proposals for work, from several $100s to multi-million-dollar tenders across multiple sectors, including yoga centers, government, corporate, and not-for-profit. And Celia, if you can give us a little wave. Celia Roberts has been on a meditation journey of more than 20 years that has taken her through much of Southeast Asia, including India, Japan, and Myanmar for study and practice. Celia has spent more than a few years of her life devoting up to 40 days per year to silent meditation, has chosen to make meditation and yoga both her life and occupation. Celia has a strong background in Western biomedical science and a commitment to improving people's lives through lifestyle medicine. Celia has built a business, a training institute, and a retreat center literally from the ground up. And for those who don't know, I'm Matt Young. I'm going to read my little bio too. Seems a bit strange to read out my own bio, but anyway, here we go. Matt Young has been exploring meditation and mindfulness for over 2 decades. He believes these practices should and can be easy, enjoyable, and fun. His main interest has been to make meditation accessible, to demystify the subject, to make it easy to learn and do, and to customize it to the needs of contemporary folk. He likes to develop unique and innovative methods of meditation and to share strategies that allow students to develop healthy and harmonious relationships with their thoughts and emotions. He's also the founder of the Melbourne Meditation Centre and a board member of the Meditation Association of Australia. So now that you know each of us, let's kick on with this topic, knowing your worth. So Tim, do you want to get us underway? Introduce us to your 3 C's.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Matt. I'll hand the waiting room over to you. There's still people coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely to be here with you, everyone, on this beautiful sunshiny Sunday. So thanks for being here on such a lovely day. Hopefully it is as well where you are. Years ago, I have a background in engineering, and when I was in the engineering field, I learnt a method called the 3 C's for pricing. And I've actually used it ever since. So we're talking now about 20 years, and I still find it very, very useful for pricing meditation offerings, whether that's for a corporate client or whether that's to price a workshop, or whether it's to just know how to start with pricing. So the 3 C's method, the short version, please let me know, Matt, if it starts going a little long, but so the 3 C's are to take into consideration when pricing the company, which means yours, your company, your business, the client, so the client whom you're working for, and the competition. And I'll just explain these 3 C's. So initially the company, so that's talking about your business. And so with this, what we're talking about here is, okay, to look at what are your costs. It might be that bringing a meditation program together, you've got printing. If anyone's done a lot of color printing, it's extremely expensive. So it's great to take into consideration printing costs, different materials, maybe recordings, travel, if you're traveling to and from the place where you're delivering the service, perhaps even special materials, or it might be mats or cushions that you actually have to buy for a particular client. So taking all of these things into consideration to work out what the costs are to you. Will you be doing the marketing or will the client be doing the marketing is wonderful to get a handle on, because obviously marketing can take quite a bit of time and can cost money, things like Facebook ads, etc. What do you consider as your hourly rate? So the time that it takes you to prepare for the scope, if you're putting a workshop together, maybe it's a 4-week meditation program that you're delivering in the community, how long will it actually take you to prepare? And what would you want to be paid? What hourly rate would you want to pay yourself? So taking that into consideration. So all these aspects around your company or your business to take into consideration. And as well, what profit margin do you want on the job? Generally, people will want to make more than what their costs are. And so looking at, okay, if your costs are $500 to put a workshop together, maybe you want to be making $750 to $1,000 to cover your costs plus to make a profit, so that you can invest that back in or use it to further develop your business. Also with your company, what IP are you actually selling is something to consider. And the IP, as a meditation teacher, in one sense, we're our own IP. And so it's considering, how much training and time has gone into getting the skills that you have to be able to deliver the service offering. How much experience, Matt spoke about 20 years of offering meditation. So we want to charge for those things. So it's sitting back and considering these aspects as you look at your business, your company. And bearing in mind too the transformation that the participants will receive. So what we're sharing has amazing possibilities. So starting to sink into the understanding of that for your business and where you're at with your business, and whether you're perhaps new into the market or whether you've been teaching and sharing meditation for many, many years. So the second C is the client. And with the client, it's thinking about things like what sector is the client in? This is always a good one to me, because I think some sectors will pay a lot more for your service than other sectors if they were receiving the exact same service. So a classic comparison might be the banking sector as compared to a not-for-profit client. I think banking, so areas like banking, perhaps medical, pharmaceutical, heavy engineering services, there's a lot of money, and there's an understanding there that they want to be receiving a quality service, and so to charge for that. So having a look and doing research as to what sector your client is in, and as well thinking about, okay, what are the client's needs and wants? What are they looking for? How much work will it take to deliver on that? And taking that into consideration when working out the pricing. And as well with the client, looking at what their needs are and the clarity around that. So actually really clarifying the scope of work. I think it's a common challenge with working in, not necessarily in the meditation sector, but for anyone new into business, often is almost a hesitancy to ask questions of the client. And in doing that, we potentially don't necessarily clarify the scope of work or clarify their wants and needs accurately. And so then when going to deliver lots of questions to clarify specifically what it is that they want. Just for interest, it's telling me my internet connection is unstable, but we're almost there. So the third aspect is the competition. And in the meditation sector, maybe we don't consider anyone as a competitor, and we're all collaborators. But the point behind the third C, the competition, is just to research and have an understanding of what are others charging. So what do others charge for a similar service? And what makes your service worth more or less? And one of the ways that we can find out about the competition is to do our research on the internet. I spent a lot of time actually researching when I was first looking at pricing work in the corporate sector. And there is snippets of information available, but one of the other ways of understanding what people are charging is ask them. Create a network. I think in this space, meditation teachers generally are really comfortable to share. And so as far as pricing goes, it wasn't so much a strategy that I've used, but is just creating an expansive network of teachers in the environment that you're in, and actually meeting with them and chatting over coffee, and maybe some amazing collaborations will happen at the same time, but we're all comfortable asking one another, well, what do you charge for this? And what do you charge? So each of those C's can play a factor. It's certainly, those 3 C's have helped me for many, many years to put pricings together, whether it's a meditation group in a yoga center, or whether it's a corporate client and a 6-month-long program. It's been really, really useful. So I just offer those today, and hopefully some of those insights can assist you as well to put the foundation or to understand what to consider in starting to bring a pricing together. And I think as we talk more and dive into Matt's stories and Celia's sharing as well, and the breakout rooms, we might start to look at even what that means in a dollar terms. So on that note, Matt, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Tim. I think I'll use another C word to describe that. That was a very comprehensive kind of overview or framework of what to consider when, considering your pricing. I was struck listening to how it's so easy to take for granted some of those things, preparatory time, even travel time sometimes. And I certainly notice new meditation teachers don't, or tend to, I think, have a tendency not to validate their experience. They kind of think they don't have any experience, but I guess there's even experience just having sat and meditated and having done a teacher training course. That itself is some degree of experience. So anyway, those are a few things that popped into my mind. Thank you very much for your contribution. Can I hand over you to check the late entries roll again? There's still people rocking up.
Yep.
Thank you. As Tim said, I wanted to share with you a couple of stories. So rather than a framework or a way of considering how you might price, I just wanted to give you some really practical examples of, I guess, challenges I faced or experiences I had when I was new to teaching meditation. And the first one, I think this happened, it may have been my very first corporate client. My very first corporate client was a very, very large mining company. So not short of $1. And their HR manager rang me up kind of out of the blue. I'm not sure how they found out about me. Perhaps they Googled me. But yeah, made some inquiries on whether I'd be interested in running 10 1-hour weekly meditation sessions for them. And I said, yeah, I can do that, no worries. And the guy said, and how much would that be? And I said, oh, that'll be $1,000. And he said, per hour or for the whole, oh, I think he just said per hour. And I said, no, for the whole lot. And then I kind of held my head and went, oh my God, what have I just done? Because really I hadn't considered this possibility of even getting a corporate client at this stage. It was something completely new. And it wasn't, until it came out of my mouth, $1,000 for 10 sessions, did I realize that they were completely comfortable and used to paying $1,000 per hour for a session. So that was one of my early corporate experiences. Then another kind of maybe the opposite of that scenario comes to mind. I had someone email me wanting some private tuition in meditation, just a one-on-one session. And I said, yes, I can do that. And actually, this was a couple of years later, so I was a bit more established. And the person wanting these private one-on-one sessions asked how much they would be. And I said, oh, my standard fee is $100 an hour. And I received an email response shortly thereafter saying, I didn't want brain surgery. I just wanted a meditation class or some meditation. So, all right. So obviously, these are my expectations on what payment were. Or again, there was a big mismatch between client and teacher. And then there's one more situation, and this is this one kind of illustrates more than just the care that might need to be taken or the consideration regarding pricing, but just the general idea you have about how you'll conduct a business. So in this instance, I'd had someone enroll in a 7-week course with me. And as I recall, they attended the first week, but none of the remaining 6 weeks. And they didn't email or get into contact to say that they couldn't come or anything. But then about 3 months later, I think I got an email from this student. I had another 6-week or another 7-week course was just about to begin. And they said, could they attend this next class? And I said, yeah, fine, no problem. The fee will be the standard fee. And I got a outraged response from this person that I would even consider charging them to attend a second course. They'd assumed that they could, because they'd paid previously, they would be able to just automatically come on to a completely different course. And that turned out to be quite an ugly interaction, and it didn't go very well at all. Perhaps because I didn't have a clear kind of idea about what my pricing policy was or whether people could transfer from one course to another. In any case, that really got me thinking. It was that incident that really got me thinking about how I should be charging and what kind of agreements and what kind of contract I should have in place with my students. And in fact, I was coming home from a class and yeah, just considering, yeah, how much should I be charging? And I remember I walked past my local bottle shop and there was a massive big advertisement for champagne in the window, $69.99. And because I'd been thinking about meditation pricing, I saw this and thought, well, surely a meditation class is worth 1 bottle of champagne. I was like, I'm not charging anything like a bottle of champagne for a meditation class. But yeah, it really got me thinking. And then the next door to the bottle shop was a hairdresser. And they had a little A4 poster proclaiming a wonderful special deal they had on. And it was some hair treatment for $180 or something. And being a guy who's never paid more than $15 for a haircut or something, I was like, my God, $180 for a haircut. Surely a meditation class is worth, 1 haircut. And so this got me really thinking about, as Tim was pointing out, not so much what your competitors are charging, but what do people typically pay for things, similar products, different products? So how much do people pay for an hour's entertainment, to go bowling or to see a movie? How much do people pay when they go out for a night on a Friday and have dinner and a few drinks? How much do people pay for a yoga class, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And I found that was I spent probably a couple of days going through every possible kind of product combination comparison. I found that extraordinarily useful in kind of validating what meditation was worth, because in my mind, at any rate, a meditation class was certainly, of equal value, if not greater value, than almost anything that I could compare it with. And the price point was often much higher for, a bottle of champagne, etc., etc. And I actually spoke to one of my mentors or teachers, Eric Harrison, about this very idea. And actually, I think he's actually written this in one of his books. And he just asked the question, what price can you pay for peace of mind? Which I think is a valid question. It certainly puts things in perspective when you frame it in that way. So anyway, there's a little bit of food for thought from me and a few of my kind of early experiences grappling with this issue of how much to price. And now I'd like to turn over to Celia for her discussion on long-term strategies for earning a living, making meditation, teaching meditation.
So I suppose I started when I was quite young, as many of us have. So I never intended to make yoga and meditation my career. And I've definitely fallen into it as my career. And I'm very happy that that's what happened to me. So I try and share that with my students, like this is how you could make it your life and your lifestyle. And I think it's also really important to consider that we're not a monastery, and yet we function like a monastery sometimes if you're running a retreat center or you're running a center. And we have this idea that we're not able to make money through meditation. If you've been in some of those stricter lineages, you can get criticized for that, but we're not a monastery. So how do we make the money come towards us that helps us to function as an individual in society, and then helps us to spread the teachings to other human beings, and then also be able to sort of reinvest in the business to keep building it up and keep reaching more people. So sometimes I try and imagine myself as the interface between like a yoga studio, because I run a retreat center, so a yoga studio in town, which you might be, and that's really a wonderful thing to do. So I don't know huge amounts about that, but I can tell you what I have done. And a monastery. So I kind of imagine myself as the interface. So I'm not collecting lots and lots of students in a sort of $10 per class model or $25 or $30 per class model. Rather, I'm taking a few or more than a few, sorry, a few hundred students and trying to make them meditation teachers. Now, I suppose there are sort of key points along the way. First of all, I was running classes out of my home, and the home started getting too small. And so I thought, okay, we'll need a bigger space. I need to be able to park all these cars. And then we bought us a 25-acre property, and that property was a visualization that I had. And I was very strong in visualization, and I probably start to think sometimes it can be a bit woo-woo, but the research is really good about visualizing. So I'd actually visualized the property and the studio that I was going to build next to it. And I'd even visualized the figure that I'd pay the gentleman who owned the property, and that all did come to fruition. So I was very strong in those visualizations, and they did work. And the science is really good about the backing of that. I've always had a very strong interest in biomedical science and medicine, and so I studied biomedical science at university, and I thought, how can I interact this with meditation and yoga? And that created a little niche for me that's now very popular, so it's not so niche-y anymore, but it was at the time when I was starting to develop that as sort of my model. So often when teachers are coming to me to work out how they're going to do it, I often ask them to really consider their niche, like where have they trained previously? Don't forget what you've done prior, because that is, you can't, if you're just a new meditation teacher, you've got to consider, well, I'm also, a landscape architect, so how could you bring those two things together? Would there be space to do that? And then probably the other important thing when you're trying to make it your lifestyle, you really need to start to, and I didn't plan this along the way, but looking back, you need to start to think, well, how many students do I need to take, and how much money will each student provide, so that I only need to take 300 students or something like that. But if you're running a studio and you're needing to charge $25 a week, well, then you might need a lot more. So you need to sort of mathematically work it out. If I want to achieve, you know, a certain income per annum, how many students would I need to do this? And I think sometimes our goals can be really lofty. Like I remember in the first years of business, the goals were incredibly lofty and high, but ultimately I've always noticed that they do come to fruition, perhaps a little bit slower than you expect, but the fact that you've set that up, you've set that as your intention, your sankalpa in yoga we call that, and you keep visualizing it and coming back to that, then it does start to happen. And that's one of the best ideas we have about yoga, that you shouldn't give up on a sankalpa until it unfolds. So I think that's very important. But I do think the most important thing looking back that I started to really recognize was, here's what I need to make for an income, and this is how many students I want to take on, and this is the amount that each student will naturally have to impart, so I can keep this thing functioning. And how am I going to, I think one of the most important things that a very successful business entrepreneur friend of mine has mentioned, with a $10 million turnover, she said something to me that has stuck with me, that you keep reinvesting in the business. So I'm not interested in the share market. I'm a little bit interested in property because I run something from property, but I always try and reinvest the money into the business, to growing the business, to making meditation spread, and to try and access as many people as we can. And for me, that means training teachers who will train other individuals out there. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah, and it's really important to think about, how am I going to make this my lifestyle? How am I going to live by being a meditation teacher? And how am I going to help others live and breathe meditation, so to speak? And I think if you've got those two things happening, the want to help others and the genuine want to also help yourself to keep spreading the word, then you've got something, yeah, that will achieve that sankalpa. So thank you.
Unmute myself. Thank you very much, Celia. That was really fascinating for me, because that was almost the opposite of how I kind of got underway with my business, I think. I was really interested in how you it seemed like you started with the end in mind,
Yeah.
and then kind of reverse engineered, like, what do I need to do? What are the steps in order to, it's like, here's the final product.
Yes.
What do I need to do to pull everything together to get there?
Yes.
Very systematic.
Yeah, it's interesting. At one point, I did have to pull in a robotics engineer who specializes in data as a friend. You know, yeah, because I don't have that mind. I just do it, you know, really emotionally. I make my decisions more emotionally. But yeah, the engineer really helps, doesn't it, Tim?
Yeah, I was going to say at one point too, it sounded like a very mathematically precise kind of model that you had there, but at the same time, you're relying on your sankalpa or your intuition and your visualization as well. So it's kind of real mixture of both.
Yeah, great.
Excellent. Well, hopefully that's given you all a little bit of food for thought to take into some breakout rooms. You don't have to focus specifically on anything that we've discussed. You can discuss, you know, your own questions and concerns. I'll just share with you the link to Meditation Australia's pricing, or suggested pricing. One second, everyone. So there's a little, hopefully there's a link that's popped up in the chat box. Did that work? Yes. I can also share with you that should do. You'll be able to refer to that. So what we're going to do is break you up into breakout rooms for perhaps 25 minutes. So you've got a good time to kind of have a little discussion. And then when we come back, it'd be good if there could be a spokesperson from each group. Not that we've got, what, 56 people, so we may not be able to hear from all the groups, but you'll be able to leave your questions or leave any questions you have following your discussions in the chat box, so we can refer to those or respond to those when you return. So 1 second while I allocate these rooms. Maybe we'll have 4 or 5 people in each room, so that'll be 11 rooms. So you should see a little invitation to jump into a room pop up momentarily. You're muted, Tim. You look like you're trying to speak, but you're muted.
Hi, Matt. It's just me. I'm not participating. I'm just listening. So I'll hang out in this room, but don't worry about me.
How did you manage to do that?
You can refuse. You can say
you can refuse to enter the room. No
okay,
worries.
thanks.
Michelle, are you stuck back here in this main room?
Hang on. Yes, I am. I've joined late, I think.
Oh, okay. So you've just arrived now, have you?
Yes. Sorry, I had a miss out.
All right. So we're in breakout rooms at the moment, and I can allocate you to one. We're just having a kind of general discussion on some of the things that we discussed earlier.
Sure.
Would you like to be allocated to a room?
Sure. I can see that you've invited me to room 7.
Yes. Well, that just happened automatically. Anyway, you're welcome to join room 7.
All right, I'll do that. So what's the plan? How long are you in breakout rooms for? And then you're going to come back? Or?
Yes, we're in the breakout room till about 3 o'clock.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Stacey and Mia, are you stuck in limbo in this main room too, or you're not there? Ah, Mia's gone. Hi, Anne, are you there? No. Okay, welcome back, folks. So I dropped in a few of those rooms and had some interesting discussions. So we've got half an hour, a little less than half an hour remaining. So if you'd like to post some questions or comments or discussion topics in the chat box, you're welcome to, and we can address those. In the groups that I dropped in on, there were some quite tangential but interesting discussions, so we might be able to branch out and address, whatever came up in your group in that time. Or if you'd like just to, you can unmute yourself and
so
ask a question.
hi. It's Suzanne. I'm honouring that I've got kids actually quite quiet in the background. So we had a lovely room. I think it was number 6. It was number 4, was it? Okay. And we were talking. It was interesting how there were so many different ways of understanding pricing. And I shared with the group a couple of tools that I had used because I had come at it from a business perspective, and how we're all doing things differently. But the thing is that it was the major takeaway was sometimes those seeds that you plant may not come to fruition straight away, but they're nurtured so deeply that when they do sprout and then we start to see the benefit, it's amazing what we can actually, what we can do and what we can create in business, in teaching, as a meditation teacher. So that's what we sort of that was what we were talking about, because we were all from different sort of groups, one-on-one clients starting out, and 20 years experience. And so, I'll leave it at that. If there's anyone from our group that wants to add anything, that'll be good.
Thanks. So is it Susan, was it?
It's Suzanne.
Suzanne.
Yeah.
Suzanne.
Yeah, I've just as I said, I'm driving and I'm safe because I've got hands free. And it's been a pleasurable experience. And we were not aware of the pricing schedule on Meditation Australia, and I've been a Meditation Australia member for a few years, so I wasn't aware of it. So, but it's actually great now that it helps me and it gives me that little bit of confidence that I didn't have in pricing.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear, Suzanne, and that's relatively recent addition to the website, so it hasn't been there for years, that's for sure. And I'm certainly related to your comments there about kind of growing seeds, and they might take some while to kind of grow and bear fruit. I've certainly found that to be the case. That's kind of my business model. I just consider I'm planting seeds, and let's wait a couple of years and see whether they germinate or not. I like that whole concept. Celia or Tim, do you have anything to add, or indeed anyone else in relation to Suzanne's comments?
I think we spoke about it just when we were prepping for this, Matt, that it's good with those Meditation Australia pricing lists just to consider the different variations between states and in rural parts of Australia as well. So Brisbane might be a little bit lower than Melbourne, Toowoomba a little bit lower than Brisbane, so it's always good to consider that as well, I think, because that's something certainly I've noticed when you move around a bit.
Yes, maybe we should add that to the website. These are Melbourne-centric pricing models, and take account for your region or country or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know it more from the reports from teachers.
So
Yeah, I think the internet just dropped out, but I know it a little bit more from hearing it from students who teach in rural communities that they can't charge the same as the city prices. So yeah, I just imagine it might be a little bit different. Sydney compared to Brisbane, Brisbane slightly lower than Melbourne, and then the rural, yeah. It'd be nice if it's all equal, but I think it's good to consider.
Yeah. Actually, I've even noticed suburban differences. There are, some suburbs that love meditation and some where they're just not interested, seeming. I mean, yeah. I've just noticed Lisa asked if we could share that link. So I've just popped the link to that pricing table in the chat box again, if anyone wants to have a look. We also have a request from Kate asking whether Tim could share a bit about writing proposals. In fact, one of the groups I was in asked about proposal writing too, which I don't do any of. So Tim, maybe you're the man for that.
Oh, yeah. I actually love writing proposals. I worked with a charity for a couple of years. Well, actually, I worked with them for 6 years, but 2 years I was writing proposals, funding proposals to seek funding. But with engineering as well, a lot of my role with engineering was quoting for jobs. So I actually love it. And one of the reasons I love it is because I feel like it's another opportunity to be creative and to share a story as to why you. So I think I approach proposals in that way, that it is an opportunity to share why you and to do that creatively. I think I tend to use a somewhat of a framework around proposals, such that the work scope, that it always comes back to the client's work scope and what they're looking for, and that every aspect of the proposal, in essence, is about meeting the needs of the client. So whether you're talking about your experience in the proposal or whether you're talking about the type of services you're offering and the specific techniques, it all relates to what are the known needs of the client, and keep them quite short, but so to 2 or 3 pages at the most. And it depends, a proposal for a corporate client might be 3 pages, but a proposal for a yoga center might be different. And it comes back to the relationship that you have already with the client. But I guess to respond a little more to that question might be just to clarify with Kate as to what specifically would you like to know about proposals, because it's a big field and I could take up the rest of the time, and I certainly don't wish to do that.
Thanks, Tim. No, I was just curious because I've changed career actually. So I'm going to start teaching meditation full time, and I'm really interested in going into corporate and into schools. And I'm used to giving meditation away, like it's been a hobby. So it's just a different way of thinking about my own value, but also a way of presenting. But that really helps, just that it's about asking those questions initially, isn't it, to know exactly what they want. And really it's just confirmation of what you can offer.
Yeah, I think, you've absolutely captured it there. Just showing that how you can best meet their needs, and throughout the proposal that you put together, in as engaging a way as possible, whether that's the look and feel of the proposal that you're putting together. I think that plays a part as well. There's a number of aspects of through ACMM, who I teach, we're actually going to have a session with a group of students around putting a proposal together, and because there's a bit of an art to it as well sometimes. But I think if you get your heart across in the proposal and connect with the client's needs, you're most of the way there.
Are there resources available, or do the ACMM take drop-ins for?
Not that I'm aware of. I see Lisa's on the phone. Maybe she'll organise something down the track, or maybe Meditation Australia will. And a pod around putting a proposal together. That'd certainly be something I'd be interested in supporting.
I think if you're from a corporate world, I think the language comes more easily. If you're not, it can feel quite foreign. And the same with the schools, like there's these ways of expressing that are quite unique, and your pitch is obviously going to land better if you're speaking like.
Yeah, so tailoring it to the client that you're focused on. Thanks, Kate. Super question. Really appreciate
that. Miranda's got a question too. I'm interested to understand an online pricing model versus face-to-face. Should it differ? And Celia's made a response in the chat suggesting the face-to-face and live stream often the same. Do you want to elaborate on, well, first your question, Miranda. Do you care to?
Oh, hi. Thank you. Yeah, I was just interested. I'm based in Sydney, so I've, seen lockdown transferred more to online, but now we're kind of, coming out of lockdown, having that conversation and the consideration of how does it matter and should it, just because it just came to my mind, I'm doing some just one-on-ones client, and I'm priced based on doing some Zoom sessions. And then she said, oh, well, I can come to you or you can come to me. And I'm like, well, okay. And that just got me thinking, how does it then differ time wise, obviously, and, just should it matter, I guess, really, the question. Do people expect it to be less expensive if they're not coming to an immersive environment, I suppose, and I just can't seem to settle on in my own mind as to whether it should differ or not.
Yeah, I think most of us have probably been considering that question over the last little while. I charged exactly the same for my courses, 6-week courses on Zoom as I did in person, but far few people came to them, so that might be telling. And I offered special Zoom prices to all my corporate clients as a kind of sweetener, if you like. I thought, normally I charge this much, but because it's on Zoom, I'll charge this much. So I've kind of tried to use that as a kind of, I don't know, incentivizing kind of strategy. I think you're right, there are a lot less overheads and travel time. Often I'd have to travel an hour each way or more to teach in certain places, and so that makes the job 3 times as long. So you could say, well, Zoom should be three times or 1/3 of the price just on that alone. So yeah, there's some of the things I've considered. Celia, did you want to elaborate on your response?
Yeah, I feel we often gave people choice. So Brisbane didn't shut down very much, so we had the platform of face-to-face or live stream. And then we didn't, because we wanted people to have that choice, we didn't change the pricing, and it's been absolutely fine. And so sometimes when people are sick, they're in Brisbane, they'll choose to be on live stream for 4 days straight doing training. or they'll stay home for one day, no problem. So mine's a teacher training environment, but when it also comes to one-on-ones, just like psychologists might experience, the person can either go via the phone, Zoom, or in person, and it's all the same rate. So, yeah, I think if people feel that maybe they have choice sometimes, you know, between the two, that could be helpful. So it doesn't feel like, you know, they're being compromised if they choose to go on Zoom. Or I don't think the rate really matters. And from my experience, since we've done everything over Zoom, including teacher training, it's been a huge amount of work for us, you know, including the people on the ground, making sure the camera angle's right, making sure the voice is all done. It affects the people who are there face to face as well. So I think I sometimes feel that a live stream student is just as much work as a face-to-face, checking the angles, checking them, making sure they're engaged. I think it's a lot of work, to be honest. So that's my experience of it. But travel times, I definitely understand that that's different. Yeah. So I think they're worth the same.
Yeah, interesting.
Nikki's added a nice point there too, to add on to that when she transitioned from in-person to Zoom, she charged the same and sent them a recording of the classes to offer something extra. I guess online allows that easy ability to record and create some added value.
I might just give another real-world example to add to that. So one of the corporate clients that I have done work for wanted to make recordings of the session so that people who weren't able to attend at the time could catch up later. And so that's reason to charge more. The other thing is, because it's live streamed and people are working it from home, we're able to reach a lot of people. And so you've got to factor that into your pricing. You know, if you go to a physical location, then it's limited to the people who are there in the room with you. But if it's live streamed, then, you know, it's people in multiple offices, could even be multiple cities. And so if your audience is larger, you can charge more.
Thanks, Paul.
I have a question about that around perceived value. I'm interested in comments from people who have experience of both as to the perceived value by clients for online versus face-to-face. And Matt, I'm interested to start with your view, which is less people turned up for your Zoom, but that's, I guess I'm more interested in the people who actually turn up, you know what?
Yes.
But we're actually comparing a bunch of people, those who don't turn up, those who do turn up for the Zoom, versus those who don't turn up for the in-person and those who do turn up for the in-person.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had quite a few people who had enrolled in courses that had began and then were interrupted partway through. We went into lockdown partway through them. And some of those students said, like, I want my money back. I don't want to do this Zoom stuff. Or let me know when you'll be doing face-to-face classes again and I'll recommence then. And then on the other hand, I had some people were like, oh, actually, this is pretty good. I can sit at home. I don't even have to get off the couch, you know. Can we keep doing them this way? And, you know, more to the question about the perceived value, I think I perceive the value to be less. I mean, partly because I think my preference is just to teach in person. I don't enjoy the Zoom or the online teaching experience. It's not as satisfying for me as a teacher, although I know other teachers that do find it satisfying. So I kind of thought, people aren't going to enjoy this kind of because I'm not. I kind of projecting my experience onto my students, I guess. But then I've kind of been surprised at how the students that have attended have found it really valuable. In fact, I almost get the sense that some of them have found it kind of more valuable, partly because it's, you know, been a difficult time for them, I think. and they're kind of grateful that they've had this opportunity, that they can actually do something while they're staying at home. So I'm not sure whether that answers your question. There's a lot of, I think it's a very personal thing, probably that varies enormously from person to person, group to group, and teacher to teacher.
Well, since I was one of your Zoom students, I kind of
Yes.
offer that perspective. And, you know, at the point that we all went into lockdown, because I live in Wellington and Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I had been planning to come to one of your kind of retreats.
Yes.
You know, doing it week by week was not going to work. I wasn't going to commute every week for as long as it took. That would make it untenable. And then we're all locked down, and, you know, my heart sank. That was going to be the end of that particular thing for a year or two. And then you offered it on Zoom, so it made it possible again at way less than half the cost, because I didn't have to pay for New Zealand, Melbourne travel costs plus accommodation costs. I guess reflecting on my perception of the experience, I suspect that I might have paid more attention, you know, focused more closely, because, well, what else can you do when you're just staring at the screen the whole time? But also I was aware, I was kind of at the end of the short day with a break in the middle, fairly exhausted as well, because it was something like 5 or 6 hours in total for a day. Whereas, of course, an hour or 90 minutes or something like this is kind of much more readily sustainable.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Derek. I'm mindful that we only have 7 or so minutes remaining. So are there other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Just wondering if you can hear me. My name's
Yep.
Lisa.
Hi,
Hi,
Lisa.
I'm from Newcastle. My question in the breakout group was around online recordings that I've done with Insight Timer and Aura. And just the fact that in the beginning, I've been doing them both for 6 years, that you're offered a certain percentage with monetization. And then what I've noticed is over time, it gets minimized, either because of more teachers, more content, more lives. And I'm just wondering, I just felt like it was quite unethical, and how I could get any support through Meditation Australia in regards to that. Is that something you offer?
That's the first time I've come across that question. So if I'm correct, Lisa, you're wondering whether someone can kind of advocate for meditation teachers being paid reasonably on these online platforms. Yeah. My immediate uncensored response is good luck with that.
Because they're American companies, so it's
not because, you know, Meditation Australia may or may not be willing to advocate, but because I'm thinking of the music industry, and if massive kind of bands can only get paid a fraction, you know, 0.0003 of a cent per play,
on Spotify.
What hope do we have? But that's certainly something I'll follow up on. That's interesting question. And then, yeah, that's we haven't really considered that pricing, but that is another avenue for making some kind of income, although in many cases it's a very minimal income. Whereas you'd have to say that, you know, Calm is actually Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer, they are massive companies now, and they're probably making,
which is what frustrates me.
You hear Calm described as the billion-dollar app. So
yeah.
Well, where is
so someone's making the money.
Yes,
it's not the teachers. Yes.
And it kind of depends on the teachers to make that.
And when I've challenged the companies and asked, they say, well, just, you know, if you're not happy with what we're paying you, go to another app. And then I've signed contracts in the beginning. Insight Time has been better than Aura. And then they just send an email, oh, we've changed our percentages with the monetization.
Yes, I've had a similar experience, or I've signed contracts and given away my meditations and never heard from them again. So
yes, I think it's stealing and it's unethical. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table.
Yes, yeah, that sounds like a big can of worms, a huge topic which we could.
I thought I'd jump in there. I'm actually currently talking with lawyers at the moment, in regards to, because I'm setting up different platforms, because I was in the process of, I was actually creating a platform because of that exact reason. It was like, okay, we need to do this differently because there's still some threads of unkindness. And so having the daily intention of loving everyone and always telling the truth, I had to step back and go, okay, I need to immerse myself in those areas. So at the moment, I am in conversations with a streaming service, which is the equivalent of Netflix, but it's got a complete ethical line through it. So I'll keep you all posted. As I said, I've got lawyers on it and I'm just reading through how I can do that because we're working through trying, as change makers, we're working through changing the way things are done, and especially for any form of teacher. And for me, it was like, well, I didn't like the way that Insight Timer worked or any of those worked. So I went, okay, I'll just create one. So from a crowdfund, that's my current baby, is that I'm trying to grow that, and then I'll do it from a crowdfunding source as well. Right. So, and then I'll bring everyone on board because I just want I want everyone to get what they're worth.
Yeah. Well done. That sounds exciting, Suzanne. Thanks for sharing. And
no worries.
Good on you. That's a big, courageous move.
Oh, well, I realised, thank you. I just realised that I needed to do it because no one else was. And so, because having done my teacher training in the United States based model, I was like, ugh. It started to feel really icky. And I was like, hang on, this is really not good. So how can I do that? So, and in alignment. So, so I'm just working within sort of the startup and entrepreneurial bases here in Australia and the connections, and then bringing it together. So it's going to take a while, but anyone's welcome.
Actually, can I make a controversial comment just quickly? So I was talking to a monk online the other day who's been a friend of mine for more than a few years, and I was asking him to do some teacher training for us. Of course, they can't accept money for teacher training, so I was wondering how am I going to donate to get him to come and teach. And he started writing back to me, talking about Insight Timer actually, and saying, how can I not get money from this app? Do you know, Celia, how can I not get money from this app? So it was really just the loveliest moment when and he's like, and I'm still getting $1.47 from this app, you know? And I was really reminded of where our profession comes from. And I don't mean to disregard any of those wonderful comments that have just been made, because we're all in it. Like I said to you previously, we're not a monastery and we're right in the middle of that monastic life and the business life. So we've got to place ourselves in the middle. But I think it's a nice reminder of the lineages from where we come, you know, that sometimes it isn't about money and it's about trying to get less money from the app and also make a living. So, yeah. Yes,
there's always another perspective, isn't there?
There is the other perspective. And I always teach my daughter not to be the devil's advocate, so forgive me.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you especially to both Celia and Tim for coming along and sharing your wisdom and ideas. And of course, thank you all for coming along and contributing. It feels like we're just warming up, just getting into it, getting into some meaty topics. So maybe we'll have to have a part 2 sometime down the track. But yeah, on behalf of Meditation Australia, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday and look forward to seeing you on our next pod.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks all. Bye now.
See ya.
Thanks all.
See you, Derek.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for... Oh, there's someone in the waiting room.
Oh, I think they just came in only a few minutes ago. Maybe they popped out.
I've dropped the ball with the waiting room after, I don't know, 40 minutes or something in.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'll say see you. Thank you. Great to be
Cheers, Tim.
involved. And yeah, see you down the track on part 2.
Appreciated your time and effort. Is that the word? That's not the right word, but thanks for coming.
It was good fun. Okay, bye-bye.
Cheers, Tim. See ya.